Kie Sanbo, Taking Refuge in the Three Treasures, by Eihei Dogen, from Shobogenzo, the Treasury of the True Dharma I. Zen En Shingi says, "Do you revere Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, or not?" Clearly, in the Western heavens and the Eastern lands, what the Buddhist patriarchs have authentically transmitted is reverence for Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. If we do not take refuge in them, we do not revere them, and if we do not revere them, we cannot take refuge in them. We accomplish the merit of taking this refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha whenever sympathetic communication of the truth takes place. Whether we are in the heavens above, the human world, hell, or states of demons and animals, if sympathetic communication of the truth occurs, we take refuge without fail. Once we have taken refuge, we develop merit in every life, in every age, in every location, and at every place. We pile up merit and heap up virtue, and we accomplish the truth of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Even if we happen to be led by bad friends and encounter hindrances of demons, so that we temporarily become one who cuts off good roots, or become an Ichantika, eventually we will continue with good roots, whose merits will develop. The merit of taking refuge in the three treasures is, in the end, not subject to decay. This taking refuge in the three treasures means, with concentrated pure belief, whether the age is one in which the Tathagata is alive, or whether it is after the Tathagata's extinction. Holding the palms together, lowering the head, and orally reciting the following. I, so-and-so, from my present body until attainment of the Buddha's body, take refuge in Buddha, take refuge in Dharma, I take refuge in Sangha. I take refuge in Buddha, most honored of bipeds. I take refuge in Dharma, honored as beyond desire. I take refuge in Sangha, honored among communities. I have taken refuge in Buddha. I have taken refuge in Dharma. I have taken refuge in Sangha. Resolving upon the distant Buddha effect of Bodhi, we should thus bring into being a samnaha. Then, although this body and mind, kasana by kasana, even now is appearing and disappearing, the Dharma body will long continue to thrive and will accomplish the state of Bodhi without fail. As for the meaning of to take refuge, literally to return to and to depend upon, to return is to devote oneself to, and to depend upon is to submit to. For this reason we call it taking refuge. The form of devotion is, for example, like a child belonging to its father. Submission is, for example, like a people depending upon their king. These are words for, in another word, salvation. Because Buddha is our great teacher, we take refuge in him. Because Dharma is good medicine, we take refuge in it. Because Sangha are excellent friends, we take refuge in them. Someone asks, for what reason do we take refuge solely in these three? The answer is, because these three kinds of treasure are ultimate places of refuge, and they can cause living beings to get free from life and death, and to experience the great state of Bodhi. Therefore, we take refuge in them. These three kinds of treasure, in conclusion, are of unthinkable merit. Buddha in India is pronounced Buddhaya, and in China is translated as the state of truth, the supreme, right and balanced state of truth. Dharma in India is pronounced Daruma or pronounced Donmu, which is a variant of the Sanskrit sound, and in China is translated as the law. All dharmas, good, bad, and indifferent, are called dharmas, but the present dharma, as an object of devotion within the three treasures, is dharma as the law. Sangha in India is pronounced Sogya, and in China is translated as harmonious community. The three treasures have been praised like this. The three treasures as what abides and is maintained. Statues and stupas are the Buddha treasure. Yellow paper on a red rod is the transmitted Dharma treasure. Shaving of the head, dyeing of robes, and the conventional form of the rules of discipline are the Sangha treasure. The three treasures, as related to the Buddha's teaching forms. Shakyamuni, the world-honored one, is the Buddha treasure. The Dharma wheel he turned, and the sacred teachings that he propagated, are the Dharma treasure. The 5 men, Ajnata Kaudinya, and the others, are the Sangha treasure. The three treasures as the body of theory. The Dharma body of 5 divisions is called the Buddha treasure. The truth of cessation, the state without intention, is called the Dharma treasure, and the merits of students and those beyond study are the Sangha treasure. The three treasures, each as a totality. Experience and understanding of the great state of truth is called the Buddha treasure. Purity, being beyond taintedness, is called the Dharma treasure. And ultimate principles making harmony, being without hesitation and without stagnancy, is called the Sangha treasure. Past Buddhists took refuge in the three treasures as described, like this: living beings of scant good fortune and small virtue do not hear even the names of the three treasures. How much less are they able to take refuge? The Sutra of the Flower of Dharma says, these living beings of many sins, with their bad conduct as direct and indirect causes, even if they pass asamkhayas of kalpas, do not hear the name of the three treasures. The Sutra of the Flower of Dharma is the one great purpose of the Buddha Tathagatas. Of all the sutras preached by the great teacher Shakyamuni, the Sutra of the Flower of Dharma is the great king and is the great teacher. Other sutras and other dharmas are all the subjects and the retinue of the Sutra of the Flower of Dharma. What is preached in the Sutra of the Flower of Dharma is just the truth. What is preached in other sutras always includes an expedient means, which is not the Buddha's fundamental intention. If we evoked preaching contained in other sutras in order to compare and appraise the Sutra of the Flower of Dharma, that would be backwards. Without being covered by the influence of the merit of the Flower of Dharma, other sutras could not exist. Other sutras are all waiting to devote themselves to the Flower of Dharma. In this Sutra of the Flower of Dharma, there is the present preaching. Remember, the merits of the three treasures are supremely valuable and are supreme. The world-honored one said, ordinary people, fearing oppression, often seek refuge in mountains and parks, and in forests, solitary trees, kaityas, and so on. Such seeking for refuge is not excellent, and such seeking for refuge is not valuable. It is not possible, through such seeking for refuge, to be liberated from the many kinds of suffering. If beings take refuge in Buddha and take refuge in Dharma and Sangha, they will, in the reality of the Four Noble Truths, constantly observe with wisdom, knowing suffering, knowing the accumulation of suffering, knowing eternal transcendence of the many kinds of suffering, and knowing the Eightfold Noble Path that leads to the balanced and peaceful state of Nirvana. This taking refuge is most excellent, and this taking refuge is supremely valuable. It is always possible, by thus taking refuge, to be liberated from the many kinds of suffering. The world-honored one clearly set it out for all living beings. Living beings should not, fearing oppression, vainly seek refuge in mountain deities, demon deities, and the like, or seek refuge in non-Buddhist kaityas. Living beings are never liberated through such seeking for refuge. Typically, following the wrong teachings of non-Buddhism, people adhere to the ox precepts, the deer precepts, the Rakshasa precepts, the demon precepts, the mute's precepts, the deaf person's precepts, the dog precepts, the chicken precepts, or the pheasant precepts. Or they coat the body with ash, or they make their long hair into forms, or they sacrifice a sheep, at which time they first recite dharanis and then kill it, or they perform fire rituals for 4 months, or they take air for 7 days, or they serve to various gods offerings of 100,000 kotis of flowers, and all their desires by this means they strive to accomplish. There is no affirmation that such methods can become the cause of liberation. Such methods are not praised by the wise. They are to suffer in vain, without good results. Because it is so, we must definitely be clear that we are not idly devoted to wrong ways. Even if a method is different from these precepts, if its principle corresponds to the principle of seeking refuge in solitary trees, kaityas, and so on, do not seek refuge through it. The human body is hard to receive, and the Buddha Dharma is rarely met. If we idly spent a lifetime as the follower of a demon deity, or if we passed many lives as beings descended from the false view, that would be lamentable. By swiftly taking refuge in the 3 treasures of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, we should not only be liberated from the many kinds of suffering, we should accomplish the state of Bodhi. The Sutra of Rare Occurrences says, teaching the 4 continents and the 6 heavens of the world of desire, so that all attain the 4th effect, does not equal the merit of one human being's reception of the 3 devotions. The 4 continents are the eastern, western, southern, and northern continents. Of these, the northern continent cannot be reached by the teaching of the 3 vehicles. To teach all living beings in that place, and to make them into arhats, would be seen as a very rare occurrence indeed. Even if such benefit existed, it could never equal the merit of guiding one human being to receive the 3 devotions. The 6 heavens also are imagined to be a place where living beings who can attain the truth are rare. Even if we caused those living beings to attain the 4th effect, that could never equal the greatness and the profundity of the merit of one human being's reception of the 3 devotions. The Kotaragama Sutra says, there was a god of Trimsa whose laments, when the 5 signs of decay appeared, that it would be born as a wild boar, were heard by Sakra Devanam Indra. Shakra, upon hearing this god, summoned it and told it, you should take refuge in the 3 treasures. It immediately did as it had been instructed, and thereby escaped birth as a wild boar. The Buddha preached the following verse. Beings that take refuge in Buddha do not fall into the 3 evil states. They end excesses and live in the world of humans and gods. They will arrive at nirvana. After the god had received the 3 devotions, it was born into a rich man's family. Further, it was able to leave family life and to realize the state of one beyond study. In sum, the merit of taking refuge in the 3 treasures is beyond consideration. It is inestimable and infinite. When the world-honored one was in the world, 26 kotis of hungry dragons came together to the Buddha's place, and all of them, shedding tears like rain, they addressed him. Solely, we beseech you, have pity and save us, all-compassionate, world-honored one. We remember during a past age, although we were able to leave family life in the Buddha Dharma, we perpetrated to the full various bad actions like these, and because of the bad actions we expended countless bodies in the 3 evil states. Further, because of residual retribution, we have been born in the world of dragons and have suffered extremely great agonies. The Buddha told the dragons, now you must all receive the 3 devotions and single-mindedly perform good. By virtue of this cause you will meet, during the kalpa of the wise, the last Buddha therein, whose name will be Tower Arrival. In the age of that Buddha, you will be able to expiate your sins. Then, when the dragons had heard these words, they all exhausted their lives with utmost sincerity, and each received the 3 devotions. The Buddha himself, in saving the dragons, possessed no other method and no other technique. He simply imparted to them the 3 devotions. The dragons had received the 3 devotions in a past age when they left family life, but as a result of karmic retribution, they had become hungry dragons, at which time no other method could save them. Therefore, the Buddha imparted to them the 3 devotions. Remember, the world-honored one already has certified, and living beings should duly believe that the merit of the three devotions is supremely valuable and is supreme, profound, and unthinkable. The Buddha did not cause them to recite the names of the Buddhas of the 10 directions. He simply imparted to them the 3 devotions. The Buddha's intention is profound. Who can fathom it? Living beings today, rather than vainly reciting the name of every single Buddha, should swiftly receive the 3 devotions. Do not be so dull as to squander great merit. At that time in the gathering, there was a blind dragon woman. The inside of her mouth was swollen and inflamed, and filled with all kinds of grubs, as if it were excrement. It was as foul as the uncleanness within a female organ, the stink of fish being hard to bear, and all kinds of things were feeding off it, so that pus and blood oozed out. All parts of her body were constantly being bitten by mosquitoes, wasps, and various poisonous flies. The stinking organs of her body hardly bore perceiving. At that time, the world-honoured one, with great compassion, seeing the dragon woman's blindness and her suffering of such distress, asked her, "Little sister, what circumstances caused you to acquire this wretched body? In past ages, what actions have you done?" The dragon woman answered, "World-honoured one, this body of mine is now beset with all kinds of suffering, and I do not have a moment of respite. Even if I wanted to describe the suffering, it would be impossible to explain. I remember the 36 kotis of years. For hundreds of thousands of years I have been suffering like this, in the state of a wretched dragon, without so much as a kasana of respite, day or night. The reason is that in the distant past, during the 91st kalpa, I became a bikini in the Dharma of Vipassana Buddha, but I thought about matters of desire more than would a drunken man. Even though I had left family life, I was unable to accord with the Dharma. I spread bedding in a Sangharama and committed any number of impure acts in order to indulge in passion and to feel great pleasure, or sometimes greedily seeking the property of others, I appropriated an abundance of the offerings of the faithful. For such reasons as these, during the 91st kalpa, I was always unable to receive the body of a god or a human being. I constantly stewed in the fires of the 3 evil states. The Buddha asked further, if it is so, at the end of these middle kalpas, little sister, where will you be born? The dragon woman answered, with the force of my past karma, as causes and conditions. Even if I am born in another world, when that kalpa finishes, I will be blown back by the winds of bad karma and reborn in this state. Then the dragon woman, having spoken these words, made the following plea. All compassionate, world-honored one, please save me. Please save me. At that time, the world-honored one scooped some water in his hand and told the dragon woman, this water is called the medicine of wish-fulfilling joy. Now, honestly speaking, I say to you, in the distant past I cast aside body and life in order to save a dove, and to the end I did not waver in resolve or feel stinginess arise in my mind. If these words of yours are true, you will be completely cured of your terrible affliction. Then the world-honored Buddha took the water in his mouth and showered the body of that blind dragon woman. All her terrible afflictions and stinking organs were totally cured. Already cured, she pleaded as follows. I now beg the Buddha that I may receive the 3 devotions. At this, the world-honored one at once imparted to the dragon woman the 3 devotions. This dragon woman, in the distant past, in the Dharma of Vipassana, became a bhikkhuni. Although she broke the precepts, she may have seen and heard what is penetrable and what is impenetrable in the Buddha Dharma. Now she personally meets with Shakyamuni Buddha and begs that she might again receive the 3 devotions. Receiving the 3 devotions from the Buddha must be said to be due to densely accumulated good roots. The merit of her meeting the Buddha must inevitably have derived from the 3 devotions. We are not blind dragons and are not in the bodies of animals, but we neither see the Tathagata nor receive the 3 devotions under the Buddha. Our meeting Buddha is distant, and we should be ashamed. The world-honored one himself imparted to the dragon woman the 3 devotions. Remember, the merit of the 3 devotions is profound and immeasurable. When God King Shakra did prostrations to a wild fox and received the 3 devotions, everything rested upon the profundity of the merit of the 3 devotions. When the Buddha was staying in a banyan grove by the city of Kapilavastu, Shakya Mahanama came to the Buddha's place and spoke thus. What is an upasaka? The Buddha then explained to him, if any good son or good daughter is in sound possession of their faculties and receives the 3 devotions, this person is then called an upasaka. Sakya Mahanama said, World-honored one, what is a one-part upasaka. The Buddha said, Mahanama, if a person receives the three devotions and also receives one precept, this person is called a one-part upasaka. Becoming a disciple of the Buddha invariably rests upon the three devotions. Whichever precepts we receive, we invariably receive the three devotions first, and after that receive the precepts. Therefore, only through the three devotions is it possible to obtain the precepts. The Dhammapada says, once upon a time, the god King Shakra, inwardly knowing that when his life ended, he would be reborn as a donkey, lamented interminably and said, the only one who can save me from this agony and misfortune is the Buddha, the world-honoured one. Then he went to the Buddha's place, bowed his head, and prostrated himself on the ground, and took refuge in the Buddha. His life ended there and then, before he had risen, and he was reborn in the womb of a donkey. The mother donkey broke her bit and smashed some clay pots at a china shop. The potter struck her. In due course, this caused injury to her womb, and Shakra re-entered the body of a god king. The Buddha said, as you let go of life, you were taking refuge in the three treasures. Returns from your sins have already ceased. God King Shakra, on hearing this, attained the first effect. In general, in saving us from the agonies and misfortunes of the world, the Buddha, the world-honoured one, is unsurpassed. For this reason, God King Shakra hastens to the place of the world-honoured one. While he is still prostrate on the ground, his life ends, and he is reborn in the womb of a donkey. Due to the merit of Shakra's devotion to the Buddha, the mother donkey breaks her bit and tramples on some pots at a china shop. The potter strikes her. This injures the body of the mother donkey, and the donkey in the womb is destroyed, whereupon Shakra re-enters the body of a god king. That upon hearing the Buddha's preaching, Shakra attains the first effect, is the influence of the merit of taking refuge in the three treasures. Therefore, the power which swiftly frees us from the agonies and misfortunes of the world, and which causes us to grasp in experience the supreme truth of Bodhi, may be in every case the power of taking refuge in the three treasures. In general, the power of the three devotions not only frees us from the three evil states, it also re-enters the body of God King Shakra. It not only attains effects and rewards in the heavens above, it also becomes sacred beings who are Shrotapanas. Truly, the ocean of the merit of the three treasures is immeasurable and infinite. When the world-honored one was in the world, human beings and gods experienced such happiness. Now in a latter 500-year period, following the extinction of the Tathagata, how can human beings and gods do anything? At the same time, the Tathagata's statues, shariras, and so on are still abiding in the present, in the world. By taking refuge in these, we also will gain the kind of merit described above. Mizo Ukiyo says, the Buddha said, I remember numberless kalpas ago, on Mount Sita in the great kingdom of Vima, there was a wild fox being chased by a lion, about to become prey. While running away, the fox fell into a well. It could not get out, and spent 3 days there until, resigning itself to death, it spoke the following verse. What a miserable fate! Beset today by hardships, I will lose my life in a hillside well. All myriad things are inconstant. I regret that my body was not eaten by the lion. Namas, I take refuge in the Buddhas of the 10 directions. May they be notified that my mind is pure and unselfish. Then God King Shakra heard the naming of the Buddhas. Awed, his hair standing on end, he became mindful of eternal Buddhas. He thought to himself, I am alone and unprotected, and without a guiding teacher, and addiction to the 5 desires is drowning me. At once, accompanied by a host of 80,000 gods, he flew down to the well, intending to investigate in full. Then he saw the wild fox at the bottom of the well, paws clawing the earth, unable to get out. God King Shakra again thought to himself and said, Saintly person, perhaps you consider that you are without ways or means, although I now see the figure of a wild fox. You are assuredly a bodhisattva, not a common instrument. For, kind, gentle person, the verse you spoke previously was not common words. I beg you to preach for the gods, the pivot of the Dharma. At this, the wild fox called up in reply, Though you are a god king, you are uneducated, while a teacher of Dharma is down below. You yourself remain up above, entirely failing to practice courtesy. You ask to hear the pivot of the Dharma. The water of Dharma is pure and is able to save people. How can you intend to obtain for yourself such a tribute? God King Shakra, on hearing this, was greatly ashamed. But the gods in attendance laughed in surprise, saying, "If the celestial king alighted, there would be no benefit at all." God King Shakra thereupon addressed the many gods. "Pray, do not harbour surprise or fear at this. It is due to my being stubborn and closed and lacking in virtue. Without fail, we must hear from this fox, the pivot of the Dharma." Then Shakra hung down a celestial precious robe, taking hold of which the wild fox emerged above. The gods served to it a meal of nectar. The wild fox, taking sustenance, gained the will to live. Unexpectedly, in the midst of calamity, it had come upon such good fortune that its mind was set dancing, and its joy was boundless. The wild fox widely preached for God King Shakra and all the gods, the pivot of the Dharma. This is called the story of God King Shakra's doing prostrations to an animal and making it his teacher. Clearly, we have seen God King Shakra's making a wild fox into his teacher may be proof of how hard it is to hear the name of Buddha, the name of Dharma Sangha. The present fact that, aided by long accumulated good, we are meeting the Dharma bequeathed by the Tathagata, and that night and day we are hearing the precious appellations of the three treasures, will not regress with the passing of time. Just this may be the pivot of the Dharma. Even celestial Marapapiyas may escape affliction by taking refuge in the three treasures. How much more may other beings be able, in respect of the merit of the three treasures, to pile up merit and heap up virtue? How could we fail to ponder it? In sum, in practicing the truth as disciples of the Buddha, we first, without fail, make venerative prostrations to the three treasures of the 10 directions. Request the presence of the three treasures of the 10 directions. Burn incense and scatter flowers before them, and we then, in due course, perform all practices. This is just an excellent vestige of the ancestors and an eternal convention of the Buddhist patriarchs. If any have never practiced the convention of taking refuge in the three treasures, note that theirs is the Dharma of non-Buddhists, and know that it may be the Dharma of celestial demons. The Dharma of the Buddhas and the patriarchs inevitably has, at its beginning, a ceremony of taking refuge in the three treasures. On a day of the summer retreat, in the 7th year of Kencho, I finished copying from the late master's initial draft. He had yet to reach the stage of an intermediate draft, a fair copy, and so on. Doubtless, during the master's revision, there would have been additions and deletions. Now such procedures are impermissible, and so the master's draft reads as it is.